Hey everybody, I wanted to share some thoughts for this upcoming Parsha, Shemini. So this week's Torah portion contains within it a subtle democratic pivot. The first two Parshiot of Vayikra, if you can remember before Pesach, dealt with the intricacies of the sacred food system, detailing the choreography of how the Kohanim were to perform the various animal sacrifices. In Parshat Shemini, in the beginning of chapter 11, God turns God's attention beyond the ambit of the Sanctum Sanctorum, the Kodesh Kodashim, to instruct the people of Israel what their own relationship to animal lives will look like. We could imagine a world in which only the priests were allowed to eat meat, or that fleischigs were only to be consumed in the temple. And while chulin, non-sacrificial meat, is only explicitly described in Devarim, in Deuteronomy. This week's Parsha is the locus classicus for our entire system of kashrut. Earlier in the Parsha is a rare narratival component of Vayikra, and a tragic one at that, as the two eldest sons of Aaron HaKohen, Nadav and Avihu, struck down by God for offering a strange fire, Eish Zara. Following their sad fate, the Torah underscores that the priests were to remain sober during their sacral ministrations. God says, "Drink no wine or other intoxicant, you or your sons, when you enter the tent of meeting, that you may not die." I think that's enough for the voice. "This is a law for all time throughout the ages, for you must distinguish between the sacred and the profane, and between the unclean and the clean. And you must teach the Israelites," says God, "all the laws which the Lord has imparted to them through Moshe." That's Leviticus chapter 10, verse 9 to 11. A thematic through line of Vayikra is the insistence on Havdalah, on division, categorization, separation, especially coming out of Purim way back before, during which drunkenness and its attendant blurring of the lines was the norm. Now we're after Passover, in which we divide between chametz and matzah, so these distinctions are very clear to us. So now we can understand how inebriation, Purim consciousness, runs counter to the discernment of priestly law. And let us not forget, of course, that chametz was not allowed on the altar. Those distinctions, that clarity, is required to run the temple. The Kohanim were, in a sense, professional assessors, determining the fitness of what was brought as a gift to God. All of these binary divisions ran in parallel. The offering had to be holy, clean, and pure. What would it say of God, or of us, if we brought that which was easy to give away, or that which we did not truly want or need? The offerings of the temple had to be vital, vibrant, full of life. So, the laws of kashrut are trying to communicate something about the difference between life and death. Later in the Parsha, we encounter a halacha still current to this day. It reads, "If any impure animal falls into, like a bug or something like that, not like a cow, falls into a clay vessel, everything inside that vessel will be impure, and you will break it." Psh! We know this even today, when an errant choice in the kitchen can doom our precious china, while we are able to boil or burn away the chametz for the rest of our kitchenware, if we remember a couple weeks ago. Our china was not able to be changed. So why is it the case that, while you can purge a metal pot or a wooden spoon, the Midrash Sifra teaches us that there is no way to reset an earthenware dish? The only recourse, then, is that we have to shatter it. Clay, you see, unlike copper, is a porous substance. It's permeable, vulnerable. So if we think of the unclean object as communicative. We can understand that its qualities will permeate into the clay dish. What's funny is that we, too, according to the Torah, are made out of clay. If we remember back in Genesis 2, when God took the earth in the Garden of Eden and shaped it into a human form and blew the breath of life into the nostrils. We're golems, effectively. So the dishes are clay, and they're permeable, and we, in our origins, are clay. Perhaps the Torah is suggesting utmost attention when dealing with earthenware dishes, since we have a kind of resonance with them. Like clay, we too are permeable. We too are vulnerable. But unlike earthenware, we are not doomed when we encounter the forces of death, or their resonances, the small or great tragedies that populate our lives. There is healing, there is growth, there is a new beginning. Here we can recall the poignance that resonates with us, especially during this period of vulnerability that we're all living through right now. Like earthenware vessels, we too feel shattered. But, unlike those cups of china, we are more resilient than mere brittle clay. We are not broken, but we are absorbed into our other symbolic origin, not just the dirt of the earth, but the receiving depths of the mikveh, which we know in truth is the same depths of and in God, who is called the hope of Israel. And the word for hope, of course, is mikveh. We are reborn. Good Shabbos.